what do we really want more than success? We want to make sure our brain is not overloaded. So today we are going to focus on the overloaded brain. We have PWT Mentor Expert Victoria Burcea and founder of my Recreo Health, and she'll tell us all about it. And of course, we got my partner in crime, Youssef Skalli, founder of Scalability Coaching, who is a values inspired coach, and I like to call him the walking coach. So, and of course, your host, Carolina Billings with PWT Global, exploring more than success. So, welcome, guys. The overloaded brain wouldn't know anything about it. Get us started, Victoria, who has a holiday named after herself. This is how special this lady is.
Thank you so much for having me. There's nothing I love talking about more than the overloaded brain, overwhelm, how it affects us in midlife and what we can do about it. Because I suffered my very own overwhelm about 12 years ago now. I had to take a year off work and my body was paralyzed, and we didn't have a lot of information about it then, and we have a lot more now. And the overloaded brain, what I want to kind of say about that is we need to start using the word dysregulated in the right way, because really an overloaded brain means that we're dysregulated in some way. And often when we hear that word, we go, oh, that means big, big trouble. But we can be dysregulated throughout the day, or it can really mean a total and complete burnout.
It's a spectrum.
Yeah, it's a spectrum. Yeah. That's right. But what dysregulated means, and if you're listening, you may go, yes, 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 yes. It means that we're not responding normally to our system. It means that our brain and our nervous system is either put on high alert, so fight or flight, or shut down, which is low alert, which is your freeze or fawn. Both are equally as disrupted. So we have reactions that are disproportionate to the situations that are happening in our life. And that is really the first sign of an overwhelmed brain. And this is what I love that. It's not
reactions that are disproportionate.
Yeah.
With what is occurring. Love that.
And that can be on the hype, like the range of like yelling, or it can be getting stuck in the drama and the rumination, or it could literally be shutting down where people think, oh, this person has no emotion. That's not appropriate.
And you know what? Actually, I have not experienced burnout to the degree that the two of you have had an experience, which I love. We're going to talk about it because is the sign. I love the similar experience, but different signs, right? And different, because each one of us is different. But I had an experience twice now with death and there were natural deaths. They were, either a parent that had lived well into their 90s, or my pet that had lived waiting to their 17s, which exceeded its natural life expectancy. And you know what? I couldn't cry. And I'm a crier. Like, I'll watch a sad commercial or a sad song, sad movie, and I am just like bawling my eyes out, right? And in this occurred, like, I just couldn't cry. And all I kept thinking was, what's wrong with me? And now that you're presenting it as a spectrum, now is kind of, that I guess that was it, right?
Yeah, so you went into shutdown mode, and often we judge others, especially around grief. Well, they're not crying. What's wrong with them? But we deal with our traumas, big T traumas or little t traumas, in very different ways. And some of us are fight or flighters, and some of us are freeze or fawners, and some of us use both at different times. But we get stuck, and that's a sign of dysregulation. And it can be emotional dysregulation or nervous system dysregulation, or both.
Yeah. So Youssef and I were part of a first edition of Success Without Burnout, which our second edition is coming out. And of course, Victoria will be part of it. But Youssef, one of the things, a common thread in our publication, our guide, really, a publication, was that, success without burnout, because somehow we just have understood and accepted a cultural narrative that success and burnout, feel the burn, right, is par for the course,
Mhm.
and don't you complain. And
Mhm.
actually, even the word overwhelm seems to be a weakness, right? Just like telling someone you're emotional, if someone admits to being overwhelmed, you might as well be flying a flag that says I am weak, right?
Yeah.
But in our competitive
These are
culture,
our fears inside our
right?
head too, right? If
Correct.
I'm seen as that, then I'm going to lose everything, and that just perpetuates
Yeah.
the overwhelm and the anxiety and the worry as well.
So, Yusuf, from the men's perspective, the words overload, overwhelm, burnout, what does it tell us?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I really like that you refer to the success without burnout and the leadership without borders. In both of them, we addressed this aspect. From my own experience and working with men on that aspect, first thing, there is that culture of glorifying the overwhelm, glorifying the overload, and especially for men, we have been trained. I'm generalizing here
Of course.
consciously because that's I'm doing it consciously because that's what bring the alerts, is that we glorified that we need to be on constant load for our brain, and unloading our brain is something that it's not in our terminology or in our area of attention. So we keep overloading, loading and overloading and loading and overloading without taking the time to pause and unload, and really just reflect on what am I going through. It's
Mhm.
rather than just push through, rather than just reflecting. I really liked, Victoria, that you mentioned the freeze and the phone, because most of the time we give a lot of attention to the fight or
Mhm.
freeze, while there is the silent reaction,
The flight and the fawn, I guess.
So the fawning, if
Well,
I
the
can,
phone in mainly the phone in, it's also, we are talking about the spectrum, but in the phone in we try to give it, when I say we, the
yeah,
society we are living in,
The royal we.
the royal we.
exactly, we gave it even another connotation that is completely distracting. So to me, it's another overload of brain. We gave it the connotation of people pleasing, while actually it's completely different than people pleasing.
That's
This
right.
is why in my approach to burnout and overloaded brain, I really distinguish what I call the three A's, which is the alert, the apathy, the abandon, and the adaptation. And here
That's
I'm talking
four
about
A's.
the four A's. Sorry, the four A's.
That's okay.
Yeah, the four A's. And here by the adaptation, I refer to dysfunctional adaptation. But
Mm.
the part of apathy and abandon, it's less talked about. So thank you, Victoria, for
I love
mentioning
that
it.
dysfunctional adaptation,
Yeah.
because being agreeable, especially for women, did you know that all of the AI bots like Siri and Alexa and all that are created female?
Because
Have you
they're
paid attention?
agreeable.
Pardon?
Because they're agreeable.
Because correct, because they're not intimidated and agreeable. And it goes to that
Mhm.
perpetuation that women are meant to be agreeable.
I think there's, from the female perspective, I love this because Youssef, I think you focus more on men and I focus more on women, and there's a lot of synergy here. But from the female perspective, the fawning has never been, I love that it's only come out in the past couple of years and we're recognizing it now, but it's been used as a tool against us, or almost as a weapon against us in many ways. So we don't understand when we're fawning, and then it can be used against us as, again, not normal behavior. And the fawning comes from a place of anxiety. So it is coming from the amygdala. It is coming from your fight, flight, or freeze. It is coming from a place of fear. But what women often do with the fawning, and men as well, but from the women's perspective, is if there is someone that it has authority over us or has power over us, even physical power, fawning is when we start giving them compliments because we think that will alleviate the fear of their power. And so we really need to be having discussions about how fawning is a part of dysregulation as well. And it's a part of that survival mechanism. And we often get judged against it. We say, oh, well, you made a complaint against this person, maybe at HR in a toxic workplace, but you speak highly of them and you give them compliments. And we need to recognize that kind of behavior is an overloaded brain as well. And it is a survival mechanism. We're not choosing to do those things. We're not volunteering to behave in this dysregulated way. Our brain and our nervous system are guiding us to do that because of a place of anxiety and fear.
And you know what? I'll take it one step further, because you said those that have power and authority over us.
Yeah.
There's also the fawning or the appeasement of those that have perceived power.
Yes, thank you for that. That have
Right?
perceive that they
That
have
could be a
power.
relationship, that could be
That's
a
right.
parent. Like a lot of the bullying, we always think men-women dynamic when it comes to bullying. But you know what? I've seen more women bully women than men bully women.
Yeah,
Like,
we
at least
do
in
each
my
other as well.
personal experience, right?
Mhm.
And you are commended as a peacekeeper, right? And
Mhm.
especially in a household, like as the mom, you might be the person that's always keeping the peace between everyone, right? But instead of addressing the issues, instead of like teaching people how to, debate or moderate their disagreements, or learn compromise opposite to appeasement. And I am guilty. I have part of my master's is in conflict resolution, because I don't like fighting. And a lot of times, I have lived by the ethos that I'd rather be happy than right.
That's
And
right.
That's an important point, Dr. Carolina, because again, when we think about conflict resolution, our brain systematically think fight, that we are
that's right.
fighting. While a conflict resolution, there is the conflict and there is the resolution.
And
But
the reconciliation.
We
we
don't think about the resolution. We're
exactly, we
the
focus on the
conflict.
conflict. Exactly, and that's really important, and that comes back to again the overloaded
The
brain.
overloaded brain.
Yeah, I want just to come back onto the Victoria mentioned the HR, and both Dr. Carolina and I come from an HR background and the corporate background. And again, we think of the human resources or in a corporate setting as the ones who are there to please everyone.
Yes. Yes.
And the ones who are there to take care of each individual and the collective of the organization. But at the same time, we don't take ownership. I use we a lot, and again, because I want every listener to identify with what we are discussing here, is that do we take really the time to own what we are going through before throwing it to the HR or through the leadership of the organization? This is why when we talk about the overloaded brain, it starts with your brain first.
Yes, and actually, I was just thinking that, because one of the things Youssef and I have had a very similar scaffolding in our careers, and we both had both the finance and the HR portfolio, right? So it's like two sides of the engine coin. And you know what? The talk about the overloaded brain. Oftentimes, leadership doesn't have anyone to turn to. is, you know, when they say the buck stops here, yeah, but there's still a human behind there.
And often what happens, it's interesting, you come from corporate, I come from government. So
hello.
We're kind of covering all the bases.
So you do not know dysfunction.
Well, no, government has very toxic workplaces as well. That's why I had burnout and left. But yes, so it doesn't matter whoever the leader is, what you're saying. So if you look in government too, like I worked for a municipality, right? If you look in government too, the leaders, the buck really does stop there. But how can we care for our communities, and how can we make changes in our communities if we're so dysregulated and overwhelmed that we can't see we can't see to the front lines even? So like,
and the human goes home to
and
deal
the
with their
human goes
family
home, right?
and their loved ones and traffic and other, you know, innocent bystanders, right?
That's
so
right.
the overloaded brain is huge.
Have you ever heard of the term cortical gaslighting?
No.
So
Yeah.
when you're stuck in this place of overwhelm, dysregulation, burnout, often what happens is the first step we're kind of told is to practice some mindfulness, right? But often the types of mindfulness that we kind of go towards or that are recommended are actually forms of overriding our feelings. And we can end up gaslighting ourselves.
Back to the conflict resolution versus
Right.
reconciliation.
So we're having a conflict resolution within ourselves. So it's like our brain is saying, everything's fine. And we're giving this mindfulness to our brain to tell ourselves everything's fine. But our nervous system is like, if I was going to use an analogy, like your supervisor and then the employees, right? And the employees are saying, here's all the things that are going wrong on the front lines. We need to address them. They're really urgent. And the supervisor is going, everything's fine. Or the person in leadership is going, everything's fine. We're gaslighting. So you see your brain as a supervisor and your nervous system as the employees. We're actually gaslighting our nervous system and keeping ourselves in dysregulation by the types of mindfulness that are usually, that are typically, I'm going to say, like off the shelf, grab. But it's not going to help overwhelm and dysregulation. It's actually going to end up like overriding that and suppressing and avoiding and causing more dysregulation and overwhelm.
Now, you both have gone through the full spectrum of burnout, right? And you shared these. Sorry, I'm not outing you in any way.
No, you're not. I talk about this all the time. I'm sure you do.
Talk to you and as I said, we are having our second edition of Success Without Burnout with both Victoria and Youssef as contributors, and as all of our mentor experts, of course. But Youssef, I want to ask you, because again, men, women, right? In hindsight, what were the early signs?
That's a very, very interesting question. So I'll talk about my experience and now what I see again. And I want just to say one of the things that Victoria mentioned, I didn't have a name for it, so I used just to call them the band-aids, because I was working for one of the top 5 Fortune 500 multinational corporation, and we had at the time implemented all the well-being programs before even it was a thing. And that was like really a kind of progressive approach to the wellness of the employees. And I did practice all that on myself, and it did work for 1 day or two.
That's right.
And then I was back to box zero or even minus. But the early signs, this is why I talk about the 4 A's, the alert or alarm, and the dysfunctional adaptation, the apathy, and the abandon. First, it was an emotional signs that I kept ignoring. It's just things that I enjoyed to do at work. Still, I'm talking about work. But then it started going beyond the office, and that's something that most of the time we miss. I'm having a fight with my partner for something that is completely related to work, but I'm blaming my partner for that. but just to say first, it was that irritation, that constant things, just like Victoria is my colleague. I used to hang out with her. I used to exchange, but then suddenly everything she says in the meeting become irritating to me, and I just choose to ignore that and blame Victoria for that,
I
rather
think Victoria's to blame.
than blaming myself. That was the emotional, different emotional science. That's just one of them. But in my case, it was 2 years series of tonsillitis, and I was just self-medicating, and every time I was saying, it's just a cold, it's just the bad weather, I'm just having a bad week, I'm just having that, without realizing that this is completely linked to the immune system, especially the tonsillitis linked to the immune system, and that the stress can affect heavily the immune
You
system.
normalized it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that was the part of the dysfunctional adaptation. I'm just, okay, I'm getting irritated, so what I will do, I just avoid to be in the same room with Victoria, and I continue till I get irritated by Carolina, and then I continue to the next
And you're
one.
just building and building the
Exactly.
anger and the anxiety, right? You're
And that was a 2 years. That was a 2 years journey, as until I got a heart attack, actually, and
my
and
goodness.
then it was like, okay, and I was forced, even with that, I was forced to take medical leave,
yeah.
because even with that, I was like, burnout. What are you talking about? I'm a
I had a
strong,
heart attack, not a
I'm
burnout.
strong.
Yeah.
I'm
strong
strong. Step
man.
Wow.
I am a
behind
strong
me.
man. Burnout doesn't happen to me.
Yeah.
No, it cannot be. You misdiagnosed me. But now what I see more often with my clients, and this is really important because burnout unfortunately became a trending word, fortunately and unfortunately, is that we started mixing, again, talking about overloading our brain with sometimes some misusing some words. So if you are just having a bad day, we are calling it burnout. If you are having a serious burnout, you are just calling it again burnout. So it's confusing to our brain, and we are having it even more difficult to distinguish between a real burnout and the spot stress,
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah, words have power. It was like when, do you remember when chronic fatigue became the, the blame all and the dismissal, right?
Yeah, then just to add to that, what I see now with my clients very, very often, and that's why I really love that Victoria mentioned the phone reaction, is that a shutdown. Just they start really shutting down, especially men, just becoming less interested in even any social interaction.
Like a numbness. You can become
Yeah,
emotionally
exactly. Just that
numb.
emotional numbness, that, you know what, I enjoyed to go with my friends, have a drink, have a walk, and so on. And now I'm so exhausted. I just want to be by myself. But still, they won't realize that this exhaustion is deeper than that.
Yeah,
That's
I
right.
agree.
The other extreme that I see, and it was my case, it's just pushing through. So every time I was like, just, you know what? I will just work more. I
Yeah.
will do more. I will keep doing more.
If you're going through hell, don't stop, keep going.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Well, we
and
also
these are
do
the
that.
adages that we live by.
Yeah, we do
Victoria?
the push through
Yeah.
with our wellness as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we often go, I just need to push through this mindfulness, or I just need to push through this workout. So we end up actually making structures for our wellness plan. We don't call it healing, right? When we're in overload. And that can actually cause more problems too, because we just keep sucking it up and we're not paying attention to our neurobiological limits, and we're not getting to the root of the dysregulation. And I think dysregulation is the word we need to start using, because I love what you're saying, Youssef, about it's cool to say overwhelmed. It's cool to say I'm too busy. Like, that's the cool answer now at work after I had such a busy weekend on Mondays. And just because it's statistically normal that we all are busier.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that it's normal behavior and normal for our bodies and our brains, that these are normal loads. They're not normal loads, and you're not the cool kid if you're busy or overwhelmed. But all of a sudden, the cool kids on the schoolyard are the busy and overwhelmed ones that are stressed out and not actually functioning as happy, joyful human beings, and not actually having functioning relationships in many ways. And the ones that aren't are not cool because we're not productive. I'm using quotation marks if you're listening to this.
Yeah. And you know, something really interesting too when it comes to overwhelm, burnout, and societal expectations, right? Is the people around you, you know, is they keep projecting what they think you want or what they think is good for you, right? And if you are on the agreeable, or if you are wanting to show up for your family, right, you may end up doing things or buying into things that really are just not nurturing you.
That's
And
right.
that, I
That's
believe, are the early stages before it gets to overwhelm, before it gets to overload and burnout, right? I just
yeah.
had a conversation with a friend of mine, and I can't even remember how it came out. And she wholeheartedly said to me, Carolina, I wish wealth for you. Like, I want to see you wealthier than you ever imagined. And I remember just kind of like chuckling, like, yes, so you should, right? Like, kind of making a joke. And then I processed that afterwards, and I thought, that's not what I want, right?
That's what she wants
yeah.
That's correct. Yeah. And it's like,
for herself.
that could not be further from what motivates me. Like, I'm not going to say no to, you know, a bag of with dollar signs at my door, but it's not that's not my motivator. That to me is an outcome, is not a motivation. But after she said it, because when she said it, I feel uncomfortable, and I was unsettled for a few, you know, a short time after, until I went back and I reconciled. It's like, but that's not what I want.
Yeah, on the expectation, Carolina, that's very important what you mentioned about the societal expectation, and that's why we work on really writing your own scripts for the next chapter of your life. But there is also an exercise that I like to do with my clients, especially men, on the expectations we set on ourselves. So especially on the family and the social part. And a simple exercise, I just ask them to write the 10 expectations that they think the most important people in their life expect from them. And then have a conversation with their significant other or their parents or siblings or close friends about, do you really expect that from me?
Yeah.
And I can tell you, most of the time they come back to me and they say, oh wow, that was an eye-opening exercise. Simple, but I realized that I was overloading my brain with expectations that no one was expecting from me, actually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. I love that.
Love that exercise. It reminds me of one that I do with my female clients too, because often with women, when we get into that place of overwhelm, and this has to do with the lack of estrogen in the brain, and there's a lot of science around, which I won't explain today, but
we will get back to.
We will get into that. Often with women, we go to either the place of pushing through, but our drive to push through that overwhelm becomes very fear-based in terms of nobody's going to like me, I'm not worthy, and it really affects our self-esteem. And then we go into a place of fear of actually losing our relationships. If I say no to this person because they asked me to go out for dinner with them, their expectation of me is to be there for them all the time. And if I say no to them, I'm going to lose that friendship.
Yeah.
And so I do an exercise with my clients, which is more on the emotional side, where I actually ask them, and it's very hard to do, but I ask them to choose 1 or 2 friends or people that they have relationships with. They feel have these, like, if they're not perfect for them or whatever, they don't meet their expectations, to ask them to write them a letter, to write my client a letter about all the things they love about them or why they're friends with them. And usually what happens is the women are very afraid to ask somebody to write the letter, because that alone is disrupting this expectation of we have a perfect friendship or whatever it is. But generally what happens is the person that writes the letter feels so honored that they've been asked to write this letter, and what my clients get in return is beyond their expectations of what they thought that person thought of them. Because again, when we're dysregulated, we can't read emotional cues and we live in a place of fear. And it's an opportunity for us to receive some love because we asked for it. Because often when love and appreciation and validation is coming to us when we're overwhelmed, we block it, just like we block our emotions because we think we don't deserve to feel that, or we don't deserve the compliment, right? How many, when you're overwhelmed and busy, right? These fad words, when someone gives you a compliment, especially in the workplace, and you're in that overwhelmed state, you often say, oh, it was a team effort. It wasn't me, right? We block the compliment.
It's nothing. Yeah.
And that's also a sign of being overwhelmed, because we are blocking our ability to receive lighter emotions.
Well, my promise,
you're heavy.
Yeah, my promise to our friends and audience and colleagues and in the world at large is that we are going to continue this conversation. We are actually over time because we could continue this forever. And the last thought that I have in my observation and experience is that women over deliver on the emotional and shortchange themselves in the financial, like the planning. And men over deliver the financial and they shortchange themselves on the emotional, the needs and what's needed, and to, what causes overload, what causes overwhelm and burnout. So on that note, we do have a gift from Victoria, because she's, of course, part of our 1 Million Woman Challenge from Powerful Women Today, our sister brand from PWT Global. And we'll put the link below. And can you tell us in a minute or less what that gift is, Victoria? And then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, it's a printable tool. It's a 10-minute break for the overloaded brain. And what it does is it actually walks you through a science-backed 10-minute quick process that's going to help you actually find the dysregulation in the moment and help your nervous system regulate. So for example, if you're feeling really stressed out, pull out this PDF and go through the steps of what it says. And it's neuroscience based to actually get to the dysregulation, not just covering it up with mindfulness and avoiding it.
Fantastic. And my promise is that we're coming back to do more conversation, more discernment, and to, just awaken, right? Get off autopilot and begin to listen to our body, to our mind, and our spirit. So thank you, everyone. And until next time.
Thank you so much,
Victoria. Bye.